The Galactic Council's laughter turned to stunned silence as the doors to the Grand Chamber burst open and a pack of snarling Tibetan mastiffs bounded in, followed by a squad of battle-hardened human marines. Jake Grant wiped down the grimy counter of his dive bar on the dilapidated space station orbiting a forgotten planet. The door slammed open, and Ymir, a hulking reptilian Klingon, stormed in. He smashed his fist on the bar, rattling the bottles. "Strongest drink now," Ymir growled. Jake grabbed a bottle of neon-green liquor and poured a shot. Ymir downed it and slammed the glass down. "Can you believe it? Those weak, pathetic humans on the Galactic Council now," Ymir snarled. "What a joke. One Klingon warrior could slaughter a dozen of their so-called soldiers." Jake's jaw clenched as he bit back a retort. Remembering his tours fighting hostile aliens, he kept his expression neutral. "Council only let them join out of pity. Humans are just cute little pets to us superior races," Ymir said with a harsh laugh. "Earth's mightiest warriors? They're trained dogs." Jake cleaned a glass, shrugging. "Never underestimate dogs or humans. A Tibetan Mastiff would give you a run for your money." "A dog threaten me? Huh?" Ymir stood wobbly, waving off Jake's warning as he stumbled out. Jake locked up, then pulled out an old photo. It showed a younger him in battle armor, a huge black Tibetan Mastiff in a matching Kevlar vest sitting alert at his side. Jake smiled at the memory of his loyal war dog. He had a feeling the Klingons would soon learn not to laugh at the tenacity of humans or their canine companions. A month later, Jake was in the middle of closing up the bar for the night when the doors burst open. In stumbled a pack of rowdy Klingons, dragging a battered and bloodied Ymir between them. They dumped him unceremoniously on the grimy floor in front of the bar. "Human, patch up this disgrace of a warrior," one of the Klingons barked at Jake, kicking Ymir in the side. Jake eyed the group warily, but retrieved a medkit from under the bar. He knelt beside Ymir and began cleaning and dressing the deep gashes and plasma burns that crisscrossed the Klingon's scaly hide. As Jake worked, the other Klingons jeered and taunted Ymir. "Pathetic, Ymir. Beaten by a handful of scrawny humans and their pets, you shame us all. Those humans made you their bitch, Ymir. One tiny squad with a few dogs and they routed our whole platoon." Ymir snarled at them to shut up, his eyes blazing with humiliation and fury. Jake glanced up from his work, curiosity getting the better of him. "What happened out there?" Jake asked carefully, not wanting to anger the wounded Klingon further. Ymir glared at him, but then relented with a pained hiss as Jake sprayed antiseptic on a particularly nasty gouge. "Our scouting force landed on some human colony planet. Barely even a real colony, just a few scattered settlements. Their defenses were pathetic, only a small militia guarding the whole planet. We could have taken it in a day," Ymir growled. "We advanced on the colony, ready to grind them into dust. But then—" Ymir shuddered, his eyes going distant. "This pack of massive dogs came charging out at us, howling like demons. They had armor, goddamn armor on dogs. We laughed, thinking no beast could threaten Klingon warriors." Ymir swallowed hard, his hands clenching into fists. "Those dogs, they were fast. They dodged our plasma fire like it was nothing, just kept coming. And when they reached us—" Ymir went silent, shaking his head as if trying to dislodge the memory. "I've never seen anything like it. They tore us apart, ripped out throats, crushed bones. So much blood. And the humans were right behind them, picking us off, like the dogs were just a weapon to them." The other Klingons shifted and muttered, looking shaken. Jake nodded slowly as he finished tending Ymir's wounds. It was impressive, no doubt, a small human force with a few dogs routing an entire platoon of Klingons, but Jake had seen firsthand what war dogs could do. "You know," Jake said conversationally as he packed up the medkit, "it sounds like those were Tibetan Mastiffs, maybe some Kangals, tough breeds. But you should be glad they didn't have a Caucasian shepherd with them. Trust me, if one of those monsters was leading the charge, none of you would have made it out." The Klingons stared at Jake, disturbed murmurs rippling through the group. Jake shrugged, standing up and wiping his hands. Ymir hauled himself to his feet with a groan, swaying slightly. He and the other Klingons began filing out of the bar, shooting Jake uneasy looks. As the door swung shut behind them, Ymir glanced back at Jake, his eyes dark with confusion and something almost like fear. Jake watched them go, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He reached under the bar and pulled out a battered copy of Sun Tzu's The Art of War. He flipped it open to a random page and began to read, shaking his head. No matter how many times humanity's enemies were surprised by their capabilities, they never seemed to learn. But that was all right. Jake and his fellow humans would keep teaching the same lessons as many times as it took. Jake jerked awake to a hammering on the bar's steel door. He rolled out of his bunk and grabbed his sidearm from the nightstand, flicking off the safety as he crept down the darkened hallway. The pounding continued, urgent and insistent. Jake reached the door and thumbed the intercom. "We're closed. Come back in the morning." "Jake, it's Ymir. I need to speak with you. It's important." A gravelly voice crackled through the speaker. Jake's eyebrows shot up. He hadn't seen the Klingon since patching him up 2 weeks ago. Against his better judgment, he unlocked the door. It slid open to reveal Ymir standing alone, his scaly hands empty and raised. Jake kept his gun trained on the Klingon's chest as he motioned him inside. "No funny business, Ymir. I'm too tired for games. What do you want?" Jake said, his tone clipped. Ymir stepped in, his movements slow and deliberate. "I'm not here to fight, Jake. I came to ask for your help." Jake snorted. "My help? With what? Trying to conquer another human colony?" Ymir shook his head, his yellow eyes sincere. "No, nothing like that. I can't stop thinking about those dogs, Jake. The ones that attacked us." Jake frowned. "What about them?" "I need to know more, Jake. I've been studying your historical records, trying to understand, and what I found—" Ymir trailed off, his gaze distant. "Humans and dogs, you have something special. A bond that goes back thousands of your years. Dogs have been at your side as guardians, hunters, herders, friends. It's like nothing we Klingons have." Jake lowered his gun slightly, surprised by the earnestness in Ymir's voice. Ymir met Jake's eyes. "I believe that if Klingons could learn to work with dogs like humans do, it could change everything. We could become stronger than ever, an unstoppable team." Jake's grip tightened on his gun. "So what, you want me to help you turn dogs into weapons to use against us? Not a chance." "No!" Ymir stepped forward, desperate. "I swear that's not what I want. I want to understand, Jake. I want to learn how to bond with dogs, how to train them, like you humans do. Please, teach me your secrets." Jake stared at Ymir, torn. The plea in the Klingon's eyes seemed genuine, but could he really trust him? Finally, Jake sighed. "I must be out of my mind, but okay, I'll teach you. On one condition. You have to swear on your honor as a Klingon that you will never use anything I show you to harm humans or dogs. Swear it." Ymir straightened, placing a fist over his chest. "I swear it, Jake. On my life I will only use this knowledge to forge a partnership like the one between humans and dogs. Never for violence against you." Jake nodded curtly, holstering his gun. "All right then, let's get started." Over the next several days, Jake drilled Ymir on everything from canine body language to positive reinforcement techniques. He even brought in his own German shepherd, Max, to demonstrate obedience exercises and agility drills. At first, Max was aloof, suspicious of the hulking Klingon that smelled of aggression and foreign stars. But as Ymir threw himself into the training with a focused intensity, hanging on Jake's every word, Max began to warm to the alien warrior. Ymir's eyes shone with delight the first time Max dropped into a playbow before him, tail wagging. With Jake's coaching, Ymir was soon able to guide Max through an obstacle course and even get him to perform a snappy heel at his side. I did it. Did you see, Jake? He listened to my commands." Ymir crowed after a particularly successful training session, giving Max a tentative pat on the head. Jake couldn't help but smile at Ymir's open enthusiasm, so at odds with the Klingon's usual gruff demeanor. "You did good, Ymir, really good. But remember, This is just the beginning. Building a real bond takes time, patience, and a whole lot of trust on both sides. Emir nodded solemnly. Of course, Jake, I understand. You've already taught me so much, and I am deeply grateful. As the lessons drew to a close, and Emir prepared to depart, Jake presented him with an old lovingly worn book on dog training basics. Here, take this. It'll help you remember the fundamentals, Jake said as he pressed it into Emir's hands. But Emir, don't forget your promise, okay? Use this knowledge to forge a partnership, not a weapon. Don't make me regret this. Emir clutched the book to his chest, his expression somber. I swear to you, Jake, I will honor the spirit of the bond between human and dog. I will not betray your trust. With a final nod of thanks, Emir turned and walked out into the bustling spaceport, Jake's book tucked securely under one brawny arm. Jake watched him go until his hulking form disappeared into the crowd. He couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just set something momentous in motion, for better or worse. Only time would tell if his leap of faith in a former enemy would bear fruit or blow up in his face. But one thing was certain. The galaxy would never be quite the same now that a Klingon was out there, armed with the secrets of the bond between man and dog. A year came and went with no word from Emir. Jake went about his business, tending bar and swapping war stories with the motley collection of spacers, mercs and misfits that passed through. He tried not to dwell on the Klingon's parting promise, unsure if he'd made a mistake in sharing his knowledge. Then on a quiet afternoon, a sleek Klingon shuttle descended from the sky, kicking up a cloud of dust as it touched down outside the bar. Jake's hand dropped to his holstered sidearm as he stepped out to investigate, Max close at his heels. The shuttle's hatch hissed open, and Emir emerged, his craggy features split in a toothy grin. But it was the creature padding at the Klingon's side that made Jake's eyes widen. A massive, wolf-like beast with rippling muscles beneath a coat of dark, wiry fur. The animal's amber eyes gleamed with keen intelligence as it surveyed its surroundings. Emir strode forward, arms outstretched in greeting. "Jake, my friend, it is good to see you again." Jake kept his hand on his gun, wariness warring with curiosity. "Emir wasn't expecting a visit. Who's your companion?" Forgive my manners. This is Ragnar of Rokan Ridgeback, a distant cousin of your Earth canines, enhanced by our finest geneticists." Emir laid a clawed hand on the beast's broad head, and it leaned into his touch with a rumbling purr. Jake approached cautiously, marveling at Ragnar's size. The creature's shoulders easily reached his own. Max, usually aloof with strangers, stretched out his muzzle to sniff at the Vrokan, tail wagging tentatively. "I'm impressed, Emir. Looks like you've been busy since last time," Jake said. Emir nodded, pride evident in his stance. "Indeed. After our last meeting, I returned to Konos, determined to create a bond like the one you share with Max. It was not easy. Vrokan Ridgebacks are bred for aggression and power, but using your teachings as a guide, I adapted our training methods. It took time and much trial and error, but eventually Ragnar and I found our balance." Jake bit his lip, a thought occurring to him. "This training, you're not planning to use it against humans, are you?" Emir recoiled as if struck, eyes flashing with indignation. "Never. Jake, in working with Ragnar, I have come to truly understand the trust and loyalty you described. To betray that would be to forfeit my honor." The Klingon reached out to clasp Jake's shoulder, his grip firm. "In fact, I have come to ask for your aid once more. A vicious race called the Scourge has invaded one of our colony worlds, a planet of dense jungles and treacherous swamps. Our warriors are struggling to repel them in such an environment. I believe the Vrokans could turn the tide, but we need your expertise to utilize them effectively." Jake hesitated, old memories of blood and fire flickering through his mind. Helping the Klingons wage war even against a mutual threat, could he do it? Emir sensed his reluctance. "I know I'm asking much, Jake, but I swear to you this is a matter of survival, not conquest, and I truly believe that by fighting side by side, we have a chance to forge a new era of cooperation between our people." Jake looked to Max, seeking guidance in his old friend's steady gaze. The shepherd met his eyes, resolute and unflinching, ready to follow him into hell if needed. Just like always. Jake sighed. Decision made. All right, Ymir, I'll help. On one condition, Max comes with us. If your warriors are going to see the Vrokhan's full potential, they need to witness the human-dog bond firsthand. Ymir broke into a fierce grin. I would have it no other way. Ragnar will benefit from Max's example. Jake nodded curtly. Okay then, let me grab my gear and we'll be on our way. As he quickly packed his duffel and slung his rifle over his shoulder, Jake couldn't help but marvel at the twists his path had taken. A simple soldier turned bartender, now an advisor to Klingons in an interspecies war. But looking at Max, stalwart and loyal at his side, Jake felt a flicker of hope. If a man and his dog could face the void together, then maybe, just maybe, that bond could light the way to a brighter future for human and Klingon alike. With one last glance around his bar, Jake stepped out into the alien sunlight and boarded the waiting shuttle, ready to face whatever the galaxy had in store. Jake's heart pounded as the Klingon shuttle plunged through the thick, noxious atmosphere of the embattled colony world. Peering out the viewscreen, he saw the once vibrant jungles reduced to desolate, shell-shocked wastelands. Craters gouged the muddy earth, the acrid stench of plasma fire hanging heavy in the air. The shuttle touched down with a jarring thud at a fortified Klingon encampment. Jake disembarked, Max at his side, and was greeted by a ragged band of Klingon warriors and their Vrokhan companions. The Vrokhans were fearsome to behold, all rippling muscle and gleaming fangs, but their eyes held a battle-weary fatigue that mirrored their Klingon handlers. Ymir stepped forward, clasping Jake's shoulder. My friend, welcome to the front lines. Allow me to introduce Commander Krull, the leader of this unit. A grizzled Klingon with a face like weathered granite approached, his Vrokhan partner prowling at his heels. Krull raked Jake with an appraising glare, his lips curling back to reveal jagged teeth. So you're the human dog trainer, Krull growled, his voice a guttural rasp. I hope you're as good as Ymir says. The Scarge have been beating us back for weeks. We need a miracle, not some soft human and his pet. Max bristled at the insult, a low growl rumbling in his throat. Jake laid a calming hand on the dog's broad head, meeting Krull's gaze steadily. I'm no miracle worker, Commander, but I know a thing or two about unconventional warfare. With your Vrokhan's abilities and my tactics, we might just stand a chance. Krull grunted, unimpressed. We shall see, human. Get to work. Over the next few days, Jake immersed himself in studying the Vrokhans, marveling at their raw power and keen senses. He worked closely with the Klingon warriors, devising strategies to harness the Vrokhans' unique abilities. Under Jake's guidance, the Klingon Vrokhan teams began launching daring raids into Scarge territory. The Vrokhans proved invaluable, their heightened sense of smell allowing them to track Scarge patrols through the dense undergrowth. Jake and Max led the charge, the human-dog duo working in seamless tandem to ambush the insectoid invaders. For a time, it seemed the tide was turning. The Klingons struck deep into Scarge-held territory, disrupting supply lines and sowing chaos, but the Scarge adapted with terrifying swiftness, deploying heavily armored shock troops and hovering drones to counter the Vrokhan threat. Losses mounted on both sides as the conflict devolved into a bloody stalemate. In a last desperate bid for victory, Commander Krull ordered a frontal assault on the Scarge hive. Jake argued vehemently against the plan, insisting it was suicide. It's a trap, Krull. They'll be waiting for us. We need to find another way. But Krull would not be swayed, his eyes alight with battle lust. Enough talk, human. Today we crush the Scarge or die trying for the Empire. With a bellowing war cry, the Klingons and Vrokhans charged across the blasted hellscape, weapons blazing. Jake and Max sprinted alongside Ymir and Ragnar, hearts pounding in unison. Then all hell broke loose. Plasma rained down from Scarge positions, the air shimmering with deadly energy. Klingon warriors fell, their armor slagged and flesh seared. Vrokhan howls of pain mingled with the Scarge's chittering war cries. Jake dove for cover behind a fallen tree, Max pressing close. Ymir and Ragnar huddled nearby, the Vrokan's fur matted with blood. "We have to fall back," Jake shouted over the din of battle. "We can't take much more of this." Ymir opened his mouth to reply, but his words were lost in a fresh barrage of plasma fire. Across the battlefield, Jake saw Commander Krull go down, his body shredded by a swarm of Scourge drones. Jake moved to aid the fallen commander, but Max was faster. The loyal dog sprinted into the fray, a black blur against the chaos. He leapt at the drones, tearing into them with relentless fury, buying precious seconds for the beleaguered Klingons to fall back. But even Max's incredible courage was not enough. A hail of plasma bolts stitched across his flank, and he crumpled to the blood-soaked ground. "Max!" Jake screamed, anguish ripping through him. He surged to his feet, desperate to reach his fallen friend, but Ymir seized him around the waist, hauling him back. "He's gone, Jake. We have to go now," Ymir snarled, dragging the human away as the Scourge pressed their advantage. Tears streamed down Jake's face as he watched Max's still form recede into the smoke and fire. The retreat was a blur of pain and chaos, the surviving Klingons fighting every step to buy time for their comrades. By the time they reached the relative safety of the encampment, Jake was numb, his grief a yawning chasm in his chest. He cradled Max's bloodied dog tags, the cold metal biting into his palm. Around him, the Klingons slumped in dejected silence, their eyes haunted. Talk began to circulate of withdrawal, of abandoning the colony to its fate. Jake felt something harden inside him, his sorrow transmuting into iron resolve. He thought of Max, of the sacrifice his loyal companion had made. He would not let it be in vain. The human stood, drawing the eyes of every Klingon and Vrokan. When he spoke, his voice rang with quiet authority. "I know you're hurting. I know you want to give up, but we can't let Max's death mean nothing." Jake met Ymir's gaze, seeing his own pain reflected back at him. "We've got one shot at this. One final push to kill the Scourge Queen and end this once and for all. It won't be easy. Some of us may not come back. But damn it, we owe it to Max and to every warrior who gave their life on this rock." Slowly the Klingons began to nod, rising to their feet. Ymir stepped forward, Ragnar at his side. "What did you have in mind, Jake?" A ghost of a smile touched the human's lips. "We're going to infiltrate the hive. The Vrokans will guide us in and we'll plant charges at the critical junctures, bring the whole damn thing down on the bugs' heads." It was a desperate plan, as audacious as it was suicidal. But Jake could see the fire rekindling in the eyes of the Klingons and Vrokans. They would see this through no matter the cost. For Max, for the fallen, for the unbreakable bond between warriors, transcending race and species. As the ragtag force mobilized, Jake tucked Max's tags beneath his armor, close to his heart. He knew, with grim certainty, that not all of them would survive the coming battle. But he also knew that they would fight to their last breath, united by a loyalty and sacrifice, beyond any petty notions of human or Klingon. They would show the Scourge and the galaxy the true face of courage, the unbreakable spirit of warriors bound by blood and fire. Jake shouldered his rifle and followed Ymir and Ragnar into the waiting shuttle, ready to face whatever fate had in store. The hive loomed before them, a seething labyrinth crawling with insectoid horrors. The air hung thick with the stench of decay and alien pheromones, the chittering of Scourge soldiers echoing through the twisting tunnels. Jake motioned the infiltration team forward, his senses razor-sharp. Ymir and Ragnar scouted ahead, the Vrokan's keen nose guiding them past Scourge patrols and through hidden passageways. At each critical juncture, Jake and the Klingons planted high-yield explosives, rigging them for remote detonation. They moved with silent efficiency, the gravity of their mission lending speed to their steps. But even the Vrokan's uncanny senses couldn't account for every contingency. As they neared the central chamber housing the Scourge Queen, all hell broke loose. Fire-piercing alarms sounded, and the tunnels flooded with Scourge warriors. The insectoid aliens swarmed from every angle, their carapaces glistening in the sickly light. "Go," Jake roared, laying down a blistering cover fire. "Get to the evac point, I'll finish planting the charges." Ymir hesitated, Ragnar snarling at his side. "I'm not leaving you, Jake, we finish this together." Jake locked eyes with the Klingon, a moment of perfect understanding passing between them. "You have to, Ymir, someone has to get the survivors out." With a final nod, Ymir and Ragnar led the remaining Klingons and Vrokans in a fighting retreat, carving a path through the Scarge onslaught. Jake watched them go, a curious sense of peace settling over him. He turned back to the central chamber, Max's tags searing against his skin. He would finish this for his fallen friend, for all of them. Jake fought like a man possessed, weaving through the Scarge lines with fluid grace. Plasma scorched his armor, searing his flesh, but he pushed forward, relentless. At last he reached the Queen's sanctum. The massive insectoid towered over him, her compound eyes glittering with malevolent intelligence. Jake wasted no time, diving forward to plant the final charge, even as the Queen's guards closed in. Pain lanced through him, as serrated claws found gaps in his armor. Jake gritted his teeth, fingers flying over the detonator. Just a few more seconds. The charges were set. Jake thumbed the detonator, a fierce grin splitting his blood-streaked face. The Queen loomed over him, her mandibles spread wide. "Burn in hell, you bitch," Jake snarled. Then he pressed the trigger. The world dissolved in fire and thunder, the hive collapsing in on itself like a dying star. Jake felt himself thrown clear, his body slamming into the unyielding ground. Darkness closed in, shot through with the white-hot agony of shattered bones and ruptured flesh. Dimly, through the ringing in his ears, Jake heard the baying howls of Vrokans, the guttural battle cries of Klingons. He had done it. The Scarge were broken, the colony saved, but the cost. Ymir's face swam into view above him, the Klingon's features etched with grief and respect. Ragnar loomed at his shoulder, the Vrokan's muzzle flecked with Scarge ichor. "You did it, Jake, you crazy, brave bastard, you did it," Ymir rasped, clasping the human's hand. Jake tried to speak, but only a wet, rattling cough emerged. He tasted blood on his lips, felt the cold seeping into his bones. With the last of his strength, Jake fumbled at his neck, pressing Max's tags into Ymir's palm. "Take them, or back to Earth, to bury them where he loved to run." Ymir's fingers closed around the tags, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I will, Jake, I swear it." Jake managed a faint smile, his vision blurring at the edges. He thought of Max, of the unbreakable bond they had shared, the depths of loyalty and love between human and dog. It had been worth it in the end, to fight for something greater than himself, to forge a friendship that transcended the boundaries of species and culture. As the darkness claimed him, Jake's last thought was of rolling green hills and dappled sunlight, and a big black dog running at his side, forever young and strong and free. The Klingon Vrokan force stood vigil over Jake's body, heads bowed in solemn respect. The planet had been saved, the Scarge defeated, but the price had been high. Ymir cradled Max's tags, the metal warmed by Jake's skin. He thought of the human's indomitable spirit, his fierce loyalty and selfless bravery. Humanity had lost a true hero this day, but Ymir knew that Jake's legacy would endure, woven into the tapestry of Klingon legend. The bartender who became a warrior, the human who fought like a Klingon and died like one, the man who had shown an empire the true meaning of courage and sacrifice. Ymir raised his head to the smoke-streaked sky, Ragnar howling mournfully at his side. The galaxy would remember the name Jake Grant. And the warriors gathered here, Klingon and Vrokan alike, would carry his memory in their hearts, a fire to light the way in the battles to come. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.